You are so heavily decorated. That is amazing. What a happy accident. Could you imagine if you
Yeah.
had not opened the paper that day or had not
No.
found that? Welcome back, everyone, to the Successful Stylist Academy podcast. I'm so excited to hang out with you guys this morning and have a really awesome conversation with somebody that's been in the industry for a very long time. We were actually trying to count back to when we first met one another. Regardless, we both have a heart for this industry and we just can't wait to pass on some knowledge to you guys. So now we're going to move on to our special guest today. I can't wait to introduce him right now. With 43 years of experience in the pro salon industry, a number of senior executive positions. Today, we have the privilege of spending time with the CEO of Hairbrained, Gordon Miller. Hi, Gordon. How's it going?
Hey, Ambrosia. It's going great. I'm so excited to be here. It's I don't get to see I don't get to see you enough. I don't get to see anybody enough. I was going to say, wait, it's more than you at this point in life. But sincerely, every time I get to see you, it's a joy. And so I hope I get to see you perhaps in Long Beach coming up. I don't know if you'll make it down there, but hope to see you somewhere soon.
I would love that. That would be so much fun. I know it's funny because it's little mini reunions all the time now when you see face to face, which makes it feel a little bit more special.
Yep.
But it's fun because we all get to stay interconnected. And we were just mentioning the longer you've been in this industry, the smaller this world becomes. So thank you so much. It's an honor that you're here today.
And speaking of a small world, I have to give props to Olivia Garden. You mentioned that in the intro, and just a little bit of trivia is that the current president and her brother, I knew them when they were teenage children. I knew their father when I worked with Pivot Point a million years ago, and it's so exciting for me to see all the things that they've done. So shout out to Olivia Garden.
Yeah, they're an amazing company, and it's amazing to see how much they have their hands in it, and they're really, really care about us as an industry, individuals, the growth and education of our industry as well. So anyway, yeah. So Gordon, I would love to hear your background because you've never done hair, right? Am I right?
No, never.
But man, you've got hairstylists running through your veins almost.
I always say I think I've sat in more educational classes about how to do hair probably than most hairdressers, if not all hairdressers, because I've sat in so many classes because I've worked predominantly in education for most of my career.
That's pretty amazing. So even if we were on a deserted island and you had the tools, you probably could do it.
I think I would hurt myself. No, I would not want to. I'm convinced I would hurt myself with a sharp implement, so I don't want to go anywhere near them, so, but the short version of me is, I'm not a hairdresser, as you say. I came into the industry completely by mistake. I graduated college a long time ago, 1978. And I had a degree in investment finance. And like so many people who graduate from anything, including the hairdressing industry and schools, at the end, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I moved back home with my folks who had actually relocated to Denver. I grew up in Florida. And moved back with them. I was a closeted gay kid at the time. Moved back here with mom and dad. And they were great. And but I was like, I'm 22. It's like, I got to get out of the house quick, which means I got to get a job. So I looked in the newspaper because that's what we did in 1978. It was the want ads. And there was an ad for a company located in the Denver Bank building. I didn't tell my parents that I didn't want to do investment finance because I just got to school for 4 years. And so I'm like, what's this job in a bank building? Dad will think I'm going into finance. And it was a company called Levon's Incorporated. I had no idea what it was. It was almost like an administrative assistant job, but we didn't call it that back then. And so, and it was just, I was pushing paper in this little company. They had about 10 people in the office, and they had other stuff, which happened to be salons and beauty schools. And I kind of, very quickly, I was like, I don't know what these guys really do. I'd only been to a salon twice in my entire life. So I had no context at all. I was like, but I started seeing the staff. They had a bunch of schools. I think at the time, they had 7 or somewhere around that number. And even like at least double that in terms of salons. And the staff would come through, and they had probably 20-25% of the staff were men. And I would say 80-90% of those men were gay, or that was my perception. And I was like, they like the gay folks and the gay folks like them. So I'm like, I need to consider this. And soon after that, they toured me around and said, we like you. And would you consider staying? And I did. And I was there for 5 years. And the owner took me under her wing and taught me. I was the only person in the company with a college degree. And I think, that's always so misunderstood, especially in those days, like it mattered. And I was like, I don't think so. But I was like her favorite in a sense, because she thought I had potential perhaps that other people didn't, which was completely misplaced, and mistaken. That piece of paper doesn't mean very much. But she was great to me, taught me the business. And then soon after that, I was recruited by one of her friends, actually. She was bragging on me too much. And she had a friend in Salt Lake City who had bought 11 schools for his spouse, his wife, as an anniversary present. She was a hairdresser who wanted a school. He couldn't find a school, so he bought 11.
Wow.
And then he moved me to Salt Lake City to run them and just said, do anything you want. And I got lucky and was very successful for him. Very successful. More than doubled the enrollments. And there's a whole lot of other things that we did. I was there for 3 years, and Pivot Point found me. Another long story. I moved to Pivot Point. Pivot Point moved me to Chicago. I went to work there. I don't know what year it was. I was there for 10 years. I left as vice president of one of three vice presidents. I was over kind of like their franchise school division. And then Milady Publishing grabbed me. So I was a president of Milady Publishing, the textbook company. I did that for 3.5 years. Then I became executive director of the National Cosmetology Association, was running the Hairdressers Association, did that for 10 years. Then I fell in love with digital and social as it was happening. And I just was like, I want to do this. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to change the world. I saw the community aspects of it. I was considered very early. The brands all thought I was crazy. Jumped into the consulting side. My friend and I, my best friend and I, Nina Kovner, started Passion Squared together. And from there, I kind of swung back into independent consulting, became a publisher of American Salon Magazine, and then Hairbrained 5 years ago. I've been CEO of Hairbrained, which means I'm responsible for overseeing the bigger picture of the business and helping the founders, Randy Taylor and George Scarpese, kind of run the business and grow the business. And we've had great success in the last 5 years. And that leads to where I am today.
Oh my gosh, Gordon, you are so heavily decorated. That is amazing. What a happy accident. Could you imagine if you had not opened the paper that day or had not found that?
No,
wow.
I can't, and that's the craziest stuff about life. It's just it could be so random. And yet wherever we land, there's the opportunity for us to engage in ways that takes that randomness and makes it special, and so many lessons learned. And, I've had a brilliant career. It's far from over. And I've had the honor and privilege of knowing so many people, from the quote unquote famous people in the industry and the artists for decades, to the new and up and coming, to regular working salon owners and hairdressers all over the country. And it's been amazing.
No truer words can be spoken. I think actually that just leads right into the mindset side of our industry, the mindset side of our careers, where things could really come from. And I would love for you to tell us what your take is on this. With today's landscape leaning heavier into the digital demand, for example, like our education, purchasing decisions, affiliate tools, what changes are you seeing happening within business models today?
I think, business models, just to get clarity on where we're going with business models. So there's the business models of the hairdresser and the salon, right? There's the commission salon, there's rental. Within rental, there's chair rental, there's booth rental, which I don't think we see that much anymore. And of course there's suites, and then, some folks who work from home. So I'm a data geek, like I've always been. I love numbers. That was my interest in getting a degree in investment finance. I just wanted different kinds of numbers. It was those didn't interest me, but it followed me through my entire career. And I love economics. I had a minor in economics, and which is really trying to put the puzzle together of the bigger world and what it means financially and the impact it has. And for our industry, I think that serves me well. So, business model has been fascinating coming through pandemic. And the big idea, I think globally by the experts in the world, as they analyze and kind of view what has occurred and what's come out of it, the big idea was that it accelerated everything. Like everything moved faster. What was happening moved faster. There wasn't much new, in other words, like, we talk about e-commerce blowing up. But it was here before the pandemic. It just was moving slower. But there's a lot of confusion about it, especially in our industry. So the great thing about loving data is I seek it out. And the great thing about having my career is that I kind of know everybody who's got stuff. And a lot of those people will share things with me to provide insights, because I also have a history in the industry of being someone who holds confidence. So I often get to see things that are not put out publicly for various reasons. So I'm always trying to piece the puzzle together. And what I've learned, coming through pandemic, and a lot of agreements with those who have these big numbers, is that not much changed the way we think it has. And in other words, like independence, so independence grew a few percentage points from where it was. That's not a massive shift. It's a continuation of what was happening. And the reality is about half of those, today, about 20% or so of all hairdressers who work in the industry own salons, and predominantly commission salons. And then you've got the rest, the 80%, it's almost split in half. And that's not a big shift from where it was. It's been close to half for quite some time. And half would be rental/independent. And then the other half would be commissioned employees. And we actually saw, from the stats I've seen from big companies that really track this stuff, about 5% moved from commission, over to independence. Now, every market's different, every geography is different. We see different things happening. California is a very independent kind of driven thing. So the numbers are quite different, but the big end of the story is that not the big shift that we think. Like, e-commerce did not blow up. E-commerce, big picture in the world, went from just under 20% to about 23% of everything being purchased. That's not a big shift. And we've also seen it go down. So post-pandemic, a lot of people who were buying everything online stopped. I loved the grocery shop. I couldn't wait to go back to the grocery store, even though they stayed open, a lot of us went less. What stuck with me was ordering my paper towels and toilet paper online. But you can't keep me out of a grocery store. So I love grocery stores. So I have a fetish for grocery stores. I go like 3 or 4 times. I go like 3 or 4 times a week, and I go to multiple stores, and I have a whole plan and process because I just love grocery stores. But a lot of people, a lot of big shifts, but I think it's less than we thought. And I think because it's less than we thought, there's a lot of confusion as to the reality of what happened. The information doesn't always flow because it feels bigger sometimes than it is, depending who you are and what you do. Like, you move to independent, you move to suites, and you hear that it's really big, the change. And so you go with that because you're like, it's what you love, and you're having a great experience, and you love the idea that more people are following you. The big reality was during pandemic, on suites as an example, nobody built new buildings. And pre-pandemic, all the conversation across the industry in the seats of power, if you will, was suites are blowing up pre-pandemic. Then pandemic happens, and it's like, I remember having so many conversations like, well, they blew up and they were kind of maxed out before the pandemic hit. Lots were starting to build new buildings and more were coming in, but it didn't happen. What actually happened is a lot of people in suites left, and a lot of other people came in and took their spots, And what we also saw was, what we know talking to suites, own the big companies, is that their biggest problem is retention, more so than commission salons. So it's a fascinating time. And I think that the business models, are shifting. But they're shifting kind of at a glacial pace, which I think is actually very healthy. And some of us are confused as to the reality. And that's not a surprise either, because we live in a time where we're very reactive to information. We hear about quote unquote fake news, and it doesn't matter your politics on both sides of the equation. People are like, yeah, there's a lot of information that's not true. Of course, truth is a very personal thing. So we often view it differently. But the beauty industry is filled with a lot of what I would call, especially during pandemic, fake beauty news. I really truly believe that a lot more people have been given voices, and sometimes they truly believe what they're saying, but they don't have context. They heard it somewhere else, and so they talk about it. There's been a big conversation. Retail's bad. Get rid of retail. Get rid of your retail. The brands are mean. I mean, I was listening to a podcast.
Mean.
Like they bully salons. I'm like,
oh,
when? So
yeah,
I'm like, I'm sorry, but so I think that's fascinating, and it concerns me always when we know some things, that are provable with data, that is being ignored perhaps by some or misunderstood by some, because I think it leads them in the wrong direction potentially, and I think people have careers that get put at risk for that reason. While other people who have wrong information can have fantastic careers. It just happens to be that it works out okay. And that makes the misinformation even more scary to me, because when a successful person says, well, here's how I did it, and here's what works, and I believe certain things that don't work necessarily in the mainstream, then it makes everything a little bit more wonky for young people coming into the industry. So it's an unusual time, but I think the business models generally are not radically changed, big picture. But of course, for individual people, in many instances, they're completely different. It's a whole new life for some people. And so I always think one of the most important lessons for me in life has been not to project me and my experience onto the world. If I have a bad boss, that doesn't mean all bosses are bad. If I go into a salon and it's a crappy salon, that doesn't mean all salons are crappy. If I'm in a salon and I hear an aggravated customer being not very nice to somebody, that doesn't mean all customers are mean. So I don't, I believe it's so important that we don't project our personal experiences kind of out there without real solid information to help us do that.
That's so good.
I work so much time in the schools. I just love young people. So some of us older people do love young people.
Those who are wanting to expand their business or grow their business, where would you start with that? Or how would you simplify this? I really love your play on words. You said CEO, you call it a chief engagement officer. I like that. I like that spin.
Haircutting may not be your thing. Hair color might be your thing, right? So we're allowed to make choices about the things that excite us and give us passion.